UFC 292 this Saturday night from Boston, Massachusetts. In the main event for the Bantamweight Championship, it is the greatest bantamweight of all time, Aljamain Sterling. He defends his championship and likely his final fight at 135 against Suga Sean O'Malley. In the co-main event, Zhang defends the strawweight championship against Amanda Lemos. And before we get into the video, I know the Ultimate Fighter finales are going to be on this card. However, I'm recording this on the day of Sandhagen versus Font. Again, I just, like some of my previous videos, I just need to get ahead on stuff. I'm doing stuff over the next couple weeks, so I'm getting ahead on this video, so I don't know who exactly is going to be in these Ultimate Fighter finale fights, considering the Ultimate Fighter will not be done just yet. However, we know, of course, at 135, Brad Katona is in the championship fight, or in the Ultimate Fighter finale fight. He's going to take on Rico Di Sulio or Cody Gibson. I think Cody Gibson's going to win that fight, and then I think Brad Katona is going to beat Cody Gibson on this card. And then at lightweight, Austin Hubbard's already in the final. He's going to be taking on the winner of Jason Knight and Kurt Holloway. I don't really know who's going to win that fight. I'm going to say probably Jason Knight, I think. I don't know. Either way, I think Austin Hubbard's going to make his way back into the UFC. So I think Katona and Hubbard, the two guys who are already in the finale as of August 5th, I think they're going to both win their respective tournaments. And Katona from Team McGregor and Hubbard from Team Chandler are going to win the Ultimate Fighter. All right, so that's just getting that out the way. And real quick, folks, tomorrow we will have our PFL 8 predictions here on the channel with the heavyweights and the women's featherweights in playoff action. You've got in the heavyweight division, you have got Hanan Ferreira taking on Maurice Green, and then you've got Jordan Heiderman taking on Denise Goltsov. And then the women's fights, you've got the trilogy fight between Elena Kolesnik and Larissa Pacheco, and then you have got a fight between Amber Leibrock and Marina Mohatina. They're just fights that honestly aren't all that great, and you know, the heavyweight fights are good, I think, but no, I wouldn't really, the women's fights, just, I really don't care about. However, on to UFC 292, our first fight comes in the women's flyweight division. We have got Marina Moroz taking on Karine Silva. This interesting fight. Moroz comes in this fight with a record of 11 wins and 4 losses. Of course, the Ukrainian fighter coming off her last fight where she lost to Jennifer Maia. She'll be taking on Karine Silva, who is 16-4. However, though, 2-0 in the UFC, coming off back-to-back wins over Ketlin Souza and Poliana Botello, both by submission in the first round. Karine Silva, she's dangerous. She really is in there. I mean, again, Karine Silva 2-0 so far in the UFC. She's been catching everyone so far in submissions. When you look in her first fight in the UFC, all it took was a takedown against Botello, then a Darce choke, and then, of course, the whatever Ketlin Souza got her down to the ground and got the knee bar. Silva's a problem. She really is. Again, Karine Silva is a really good fighter in there. She's going to be taking on Marina Moroz, who at one point in time was, around the top 15. She picked up the huge win over Maria Ogapova, but then runs right into Jennifer Maia in her last fight and loses. But again, Jennifer Maia is pretty solid in her own right. It was a stand-up fight that Jennifer Maia ended up winning for Moroz. Again, she's at her best when she's able to mix up the takedowns with the striking. You saw that in the Ogapova fight. You saw that when she beat Mayra Bueno Silva in that fight of the night back in Brazil. Moroz is an all-around really good fighter. She's going to beat you on the feet. She's going to beat you on the ground. However, she's not going to stand too much of a chance, I think, on the ground against Karine Silva, because that's how good Karine Silva really is. She's a big favorite in this fight for a good reason, at least on Tapology. 84% going for Silva, 16% going for Marina Moroz. You got minus 155 for Karine Silva, and you got plus 135 for the Iron Lady in Marina Moroz. Again, it's solely dependent on if Marina Moroz can keep this fight on the feet, because if she can't, Karine Silva is going to have her way. But again, if Moroz is able to set the takedowns, she's got 47% takedown defense rate so far in the UFC. I think that's inflated because of the fight she had with Carla Esparza in 2017, where Esparza took her down at will. But again, all it takes from Karine Silva is one, and if Silva can get you down once, it's likely night over, because that's how good of a jiu-jitsu game she truly does have. So I think, and I will bank on Karine Silva landing that takedown, and I think Karine Silva keeps the streak going. 3 fights in the UFC, all 3 fights ended by submission, and all 3 fights ended with a first-round submission. That's how good I think Karine Silva is. Again, I think she's able to find the takedown against Marina Moroz, and I think she's able to give her trouble. So give me Karine Silva to win this fight by first-round submission. Another fight in the women's flyweight division, we have got Andrew Lee taking on Natalia Silva. another Brazilian flyweight who is undefeated in the UFC, 3-0. However, she's finishing fights differently than Karine Silva is. Natalia Silva is really good on the feet, and she has shown that so far in her UFC career. And also, she can get it done on the ground as well. But Natalia Silva is getting a ranked flyweight now. I believe Andrea Lee is number 13 or 12. And Natalia Silva is getting that jump up in competition, but it's a fight that she is a minus 325 favorite in against the plus 275 underdog in Andrea Lee. Natalia Silva is good. I mean, you look at what she's been able to do so far in her UFC career. She comes in her first fight against Jasmine Jasudavicius. She takes Jasudavicius down. She outstrikes Jasudavicius. She doesn't have much success with the wrestling in that fight, but it's mostly a stand-up fight where she wins. Then she beats Teresa Bleda, where she spinning back head kicks her. Crazy. And then her last fight, she knocked out Victoria Leonardo in the first round. But again, Natalia Silva has been fighting fighters she is supposed to beat. She's fighting fighters that are not on her level. Andrea Lee is going to be the closest thing to that. And I know Andrea Lee hasn't seen that much success recently, but when you look at how Andrea Lee fights, it's a big difference fighting Andrea Lee than it is Jasudavicius, Bleda, and Victoria Leonardo. Victoria Leonardo should likely not be in the UFC. I mean, again, it's a huge step up, and given Natalia Silva in that Leonardo fight was a minus 1,000 favorite. She's still at minus 325, and that's how good people think she is because she's such a big favorite against a fighter like Andrea Lee. But Andrea Lee, her last fight, she loses to Macy Barber. She just gets outstruck in that fight. Andrea Lee's the one wrestling, but she loses a split decision to Barber. It's a close fight. Before that, she loses a unanimous decision to Viviane Araújo. Lee's the one getting the knockdown in the first round, but then just kind of falls behind after that. The second round, she gets out-wrestled. The third round, she gets out-wrestled. Araújo wins the fight by decision. Before that, she absolutely pummels Cynthia Calvillo. The fight's not even close, and then before that, she beats Antonina Shevchenko, where she takes her down and gets her with the triangle armbar. Before that, Lee had her 3-fight losing streak against the likes of Modafferi, Murphy, and Wood. But again, Andrea Lee now gets Natalia Silva in this fight. Again, Andrea Lee's not expected to win this fight. Natalia Silva, her striking game has been on point. Again, 3 fights in the UFC, 3 knockouts. I think she's going to get another one. I think, again, Andrea Lee's striking game is good, and Andrea Lee will bring it to you on the feet. But 26 years old, Natalia Silva is only getting better, and again, I think this is just part of her rise, honestly, to the top of the flyweight division. There are a lot of young flyweights and up-and-coming flyweights in this division that are making waves. Again, Macy Barber's even a fighter who, you're looking at, I know she wanted to become the youngest UFC champion ever, but now she's finally hitting her stride, and now she's getting close to the title. She's at number 7, I think, or number 6. You've still got Valentina fighting Alexa Grasso. You're going to get a number 1 contender out of the Tyler Santos, Aaron Blanchfield fight. Manon Fiorot takes on Rose Namajunas. Macy Barber's in there still. I know Casey O'Neill just lost to Jennifer Maia, but she's still up and coming, right? There are fighters in this weight class, and then Natalia Silva, Tatiana Suarez going down to 15, so it's fine. But still, you've got fighters who are making their way up in the weight class. Tracy Cortez hasn't lost in a very long time. There are killers at this 125 weight class. It might probably, and I think it is, now the best weight class in women's MMA, at least in the UFC. I'd make the case it's definitely better than 35. It's maybe better than 15. It's a really loaded weight class. However, Natalia Silva is just part of that. I think she goes out there and beats Andrea Lee to a pulp. I think she wins this fight by second round knockout. Natalia Silva continues to rise with a second round TKO victory over Andrea Lee. Okay, our next fight will come here with the UFC undefeated fighter in Andre Petroski, undefeated in the UFC, 9-1 professionally, as he takes on GM3 Gerald Meerschaert. Petroski, a pretty sizable favorite in this one, minus 280. Meerschaert coming back at you at plus 235. Petroski, again, undefeated so far in the UFC with a 4-0 record. Came off the Ultimate Fighter where he lost 2-1 Brian Battle. But then after that, came back, got a shot in the UFC. He destroyed Michael Gilmore like he's supposed to. He beat Zhang after that by arm triangle choke, then picked up a submission win in the first round over Nick Maximov, and most recently beat Wellington Turman by unanimous decision. Andre Petroski, his wrestling game is on point. This guy has been a dominant grappler and a dominant wrestler ever since he got to the UFC. He's taken on another guy who is a wrestler in Gerald Meerschaert and a jiu-jitsu guy in Gerald Meerschaert, but is always just... Meerschaert's always been around, but he's always kind of been a 50-50 fighter. Let's just call it how it is. He's 10-8 so far in the UFC. He's coming off a knockout loss to Joe Pyfer in the first round in Miami on Adesanya Pereira. Meerschaert picked up a huge win over Bruno Silva before that, but then lost to Krzysztof Jotko before that. Submitted Dustin Stoltzfus, submitted Makhmud Muradov, submitted Bartosz Fabinski on his little 3-fight winning streak after losing to Khamzat Chimaev. We'll see. We will see how this fight goes. But again, you are going to see a dominant grappler or a dominant wrestler emerge in this fight. Personally, I think it's Andre Petroski. Because again, the guy's 4-0. He really hasn't been in too much danger so far in the UFC. I mean, Wellington Turman took him down once, but Petroski went 8 for 11 on takedowns in that fight. Turman got 1. He went 1 for 3. That one takedown was landed in the second round. That's how I believe. I think Turman could have won the first round, but it's just Petroski's been really good, and I didn't expect this. Honestly, I really didn't, because I didn't think Brian Battle was the greatest, and Brian Battle, yes, is coming off a knockout victory in his last fight in North Carolina. Battle, I think, is 3-4-1 in the UFC. So honestly, we've gotten some pretty solid names out that Ultimate Fighter season. I'm looking at Battle, Petroski, Heestand, Tertios, right? Rabadanov. There's been some solid. No, Rabadanov wasn't on this season, but he came from the PFL. But still, there's been some solid guys out that season. I know Petroski came into the Ultimate Fighter losing to Aaron Jeffrey, but you know how good Aaron Jeffrey is. This is a guy who's going to be fighting in Bellator. He's fighting Dalton Rosta in a huge fight for both guys. I think Petroski, though, goes in there and beats Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert has been submitted before, but again, he is a good submission artist in his own right. And this is why I would be a little bit concerned, because again, you saw him against grapplers like Dustin Stoltzfus. I mean, Muradov can get it done down there as well. And Meerschaert was able to go in there and submit both of those guys. And that's likely how Meerschaert's going to win a fight. It's going to be by submission. I think Petroski's good enough. I think his jiu-jitsu is decent, but I definitely think his wrestling's good enough. And his ability to manage top control is going to be good enough to keep Meerschaert on his back and find like an arm triangle or something. I think that's how Petroski's going to win. I think he's gonna pick up the victory. I don't know if he's gonna get that submission, but again, Meerschaert has been submitted 8 times before in his past, right? His career, he's been submitted 8 times. He's picked up 27 submissions. But it wouldn't surprise me if Petroski's able to find that submission. It wouldn't surprise me as well if Petroski's able to win by TKO by, again, beating up Meerschaert on the ground, because, again, we have seen Meerschaert finish on the ground as well. We've seen him knocked out by Pyfra. I think Petroski takes advantage, and I think Petroski lands a takedown and then really just works his ground and pound. I think Andre Petroski picks up the finish. I think he's going to win this fight by second round at TKO due to ground strikes. I think Petroski stays undefeated in the UFC, goes to 5-0 with his biggest victory to date. He's going to ground and pound Meerschaert to victory. Give me Andre Petroski by second round at TKO. Okay, on our next one, this fight just honestly feels like a mismatch. I think it does. Gregory Rodrigues taking on Denis Tiuliulin. I understand why this fight is being booked, because Gregory Rodrigues just lost his last fight, but it is, I think, the most lopsided fight on this entire card. Denis Tiuliulin is 11-7 in his professional MMA career. He is 1-2 in the UFC, and he's taken on a guy in RoboCop who is only 4-2, but again, he's 4-2, and I think a lot of people thought he should beat Arman Petrosyan, meaning I think he should be 5-1 in the UFC, and he's taken on a guy who's 11-7 professionally and 1-2 in the UFC. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It really doesn't. And, I know Bruno Ferreira in his last fight just got knocked out, but still, Gregory Rodrigues is a killer-be-killed fighter, and that's where Denis Tiuliulin will likely have his chance, because that's, of course, where he won his UFC fight. He won his one UFC fight against Jamie Pickett, where he knocked him out in the second round at UFC 279 in Vegas, but it just feels a little bit one-sided. However, again, Tiuliulin struggles the most on the ground. He is not a good grappler in the slightest. This guy he's dead meat down there in terms of grappling. Gregory Rodrigues will likely not go there. I know he's got 4 submission wins in the past, but Rodrigues, at least he's shown in his UFC career, he's there to strike. I know he's picked up takedowns before in the past. He might mix it up, but it's probably going to be a striking affair. However, if Rodrigues does choose to take this fight down, I think it's all day for him, because I don't think Tiuliulin is good at all down there. The guy's 35 years old. He is an older middleweight. This fight's definitely set up for Gregory Rodrigues to win. I feel like a lot of people are going to expect that in this fight, just because, again, RoboCop, he's 13-5, but you look at the wins in the UFC, you've got the knockout finish over Julian Marquez, you've got the knockout finish over Jun Young Park, you've got the knockout finish over Chidi Njokuani in that crazy fight, and then he just gets countered against Bruno Ferreira and he loses. If he's able to knock out guys like Julian Park, Marquez, and Njokuani, he's going to be able to put away Denis Tiuliulin as well. There's a reason, again, Gregory Rodrigues is looked at as at a minus 355 favorite, and Tiuliulin is coming back at you at plus 280. You look at Tapology picks for this fight, 93% going for Gregory Rodrigues, 7% going for Denis Tiuliulin. Either way, you're likely going to see a finish. I wouldn't say a knockout because I think there is a definite chance that Rodrigues does get Tiuliulin down and he does finish it with the submission just because, again, Tiuliulin has shown in the past that he isn't all that skilled on the ground. However, the pathway to victory likely goes to the knockout for both these guys. Obviously, it does for Tiuliulin because, again, Rodrigues is killer to be killed in there. However, I think Gregory Rodrigues is going to get to Denis Tiuliulin before Denis Tiuliulin gets to Gregory Rodrigues, and that's why I'm going to go with RoboCop to get back in the win column. I think he's going to win this fight by first round knockout. When this fight was originally scheduled for, I believe, what was it, Jacksonville a couple months ago, I was kind of scared about the chin of Rodrigues because he just got knocked out 5 months ago. Now it's been 7. I think it's been definitely enough time. Rodrigues is going to come back and pick up the victory. He's going to knock out Denis Tiuliulin in the first round with a huge knockout. Again, getting back in the win column. All right, our next fight. Oh man, it is the return of Chris Weidman. Weidman is back and he takes on Brad Tavares. I did not think I was ever going to see the day Chris Weidman was going to fight again. Of course, you know what happened in his last fight, UFC 261 against Uriah Hall in Jacksonville, Florida. The first strike thrown in that fight, Chris Weidman lands a leg kick, steps back, boom, breaks his leg. Anderson Silva. It's not good. And 2 years later, 2.5 years later, Chris Weidman will return. He is now 39 years old. He's 15-6. And he will take on one Brad Tavares. Now, Tavares has not been seen since his loss to Bruno Silva, where he got knocked out in the first round. That was only 4 months ago. That was in a co-main event on Pavlovich and Blades in the UFC Apex. That wasn't very long ago where Bruno Silva knocked him out. He's now returning. Obviously, before the Silva fight, he ran into one Dricus du Plessis, and du Plessis won a back-and-forth war with him on the feet, where he won by unanimous decision. But now Chris Weidman returns in the featured prelim, not even on a pay-per-view. He returns against Brad Tavares. How does Chris Weidman win this fight? It's obviously going to be through the wrestling. However, Brad Tavares is generally a pretty tough guy to take down. Tavares is a good grappler, defensive wrestler. Dricus du Plessis is I would say, a pretty good wrestler. Du Plessis went 0 for 7 on his takedowns against Tavares. Omari Akhmedov went 2 for 9. And I know Chris Weidman's on a different level. He's the All-American. Chris Weidman is a much better wrestler than du Plessis. Akhmedov, hell, he went out there in his last win and out-wrestled Omari Akhmedov. I know Weidman's better than these guys. However, this is Chris Weidman coming off a broken leg, 2.5 years off. Brad Tavares has fought, 3 times since that happened to Chris Weidman. It's tough, man. And, I know that, the chin has fully healed, right? Because he has not fought in a very long time. However, there's always going to be problems with the chin. Chris Weidman does have a glass chin. It's just kind of how it is now. I don't know if I like picking Chris Weidman in this fight. I really don't. Because if you're picking Chris Weidman, you're picking him at plus money. He's got, pretty good odds for Weidman, honestly. Plus 230 looks really good for the All-American Chris Weidman. However, you are picking him and you're banking on him out-wrestling Brad Tavares. That's the only way he's going to win this fight. It's the only way he can beat Tavares if he out-wrestles him. He's not going to go out there. I know I've seen clips of Weidman. He's taken the Wonder Boy approach. He's going to go on there and out-karate guys. That's not going to happen. If he does that against Brad Tavares, he's going to get knocked out. If he is able to get a takedown, though, against Brad Tavares, he will likely win. If he's able to continuously go out and get takedowns against Tavares, he will likely win the fight. However, it is just a bad matchup for Chris Weidman because Tavares is a good defensive wrestler. Again, Yoel Romero was the only guy to have a lot of success wrestling against Brad Tavares. And that was back in, 2014? The main event of that card was Fabricio Verdum and Travis Brown. That's how long ago, that's how long it's been since Brad Tavares has been truly outclassed on the ground. I don't know. I don't think... I like Chris Weidman. I've always liked Chris Weidman. I picked him to beat Uriah Hall. I picked him to beat Omari Akhmedov. I picked him to beat a lot of guys. I was very hopeful when he fought Dominic Reyes. I picked him to beat Dominic Reyes. I just don't see it here. I think he's going to get stuffed on a lot of these takedown attempts. I don't like that he's coming into this fight with 3 years off, essentially, 2.5 years off. He's 39 years old. The chin, I know the problem with the chin might be better, but it's always going to be there with Chris Weidman. It's always going to be his chin, with the knockout losses to Jacare, Dominic Reyes, Yoel Romero, Gegard, but Rockhold, the beating he took from Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman has not been the same since he lost the world championship to Luke Rockhold in 2015. It's just that apparent. He hasn't been the same guy. He got dropped by Gaslam. I know he came back and won the fight, but I think it's tough. All in all, Chris Weidman as a fighter at 39 years old, Chris Weidman's chin, and Chris Weidman coming off the broken leg. I want to pick Chris Weidman. I want to pick the feel-good story. I want to, go in there and be like, all right, Chris Weidman is back in the win column, picked up a huge victory. Now maybe he can ride off in the sunset with a win over a top 15 guy in Brad Tavares. However, I just can't do it because, again, Tavares is so skilled. I know he's lost his last 2 fights. I know he just got knocked out 4 months ago, but odds on Chris Weidman's not going to knock him out on the feet. Weidman needs a takedown to win. I think Tavares is going to stuff a lot of them because that's how Tavares fights. He's a really good defensive wrestler who's going to get you on the feet. He's going to try to brawl with you. I don't know if Weidman can truly brawl back with him. Again, the fight that's apparent for me is Du Plessis going 0 for 7 on takedowns. I know Weidman's a better wrestler, but still, Du Plessis had no success wrestling Tavares. It had, that moment where a lot of people clown Du Plessis, and now you can't clown Du Plessis no more after his win over Whitaker, but still, where Du Plessis has the double, he's trying to get Tavares down, he just pulls Tavares back on top of him. Because Du Plessis was trying everything to get Tavares on the ground in that first round. He couldn't do it. I think Weidman will get a takedown, but how much success will he truly have once he's down there? That's my question. I don't think it's all that much. I think Tavares gets him back on the feet, and I think Tavares is going to knock him out, unfortunately. I'm going to take I hate to do it, but I'm going to take Brad Tavares by second round knockout. Again, I can't feel confident in a Chris Weidman who hasn't fought in 2.5 years, who's coming off a broken leg, and oh, by the way, his chin is still a problem. I'm taking Brad Tavares. He's going to pick up the win by second round knockout. On to our next one, and we are on to the main card. Marlon Chito Vera takes on Pedro Munhoz. All right, what a fight. Originally supposed to be Marlon Vera versus Henry Cejudo. It's now Vera and Munhoz. Pedro Munhoz is coming off his last fight where he won against Chris Gutierrez on the Fight Night card in Kansas City. It was the big coming out party, I would say, for Chris Gutierrez. You thought, this is, his step up. He's going to win this fight. He's 7-1 in the UFC, and he loses. I believe I took Chris Gutierrez to win that fight. Munhoz, though, showed that he still has it. He went in there, he knocked down Gutierrez in the first round, and he did enough to pick up the win, 30-27 on all 3 cards. Gutierrez out-volumed Munhoz in that fight, but in the end, it was the damage that Munhoz was able to accumulate on Chris Gutierrez, which won him that fight. And before that, he had the no contest against Sean O'Malley, where, we're going to talk about Sean O'Malley later, but Munhoz was very competitive with Sean O'Malley. O'Malley was not running away with that fight. I don't know. Before that, Munhoz lost to Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz is still pretty good, though. And before that, he lost to Jose Aldo in not a main event, in a co-main event, I do believe, in Houston, UFC 265. Now, Chito's coming off that loss where he lost to Corey Sandhagen. That fight should not have been a split decision. That's one of the worst cards I've ever seen. Vera lost every single round in that fight. He did not win a single round, but this is the way Marlon Vera fights. Marlon Vera is, in all of his fights, it's always been, all right, just wait for the big moment. He's going to come in there. He's going to, because the power he has, right? Just wait for it. Eventually, he's going to find the knockdown. Eventually, he's going to wobble his opponent. Eventually, he's going to put his opponent down. It never happened in the Sandhagen fight. He was never able to connect with Corey Sandhagen in that fight. Now, I don't know how one judge gave Marlon Vera 3 rounds in that fight. I'd struggle to give him 1. However, Corey Sandhagen went in there, and Corey Sandhagen outstruck him for 25 minutes. And Marlon Vera can never find that one big shot like he was able to do against Rob Font, and like he was able to do to Frankie Yeager, right? Where he only needs 1, and against Dominic Cruz, it's, the same thing. Vera's got that much power, is that he can win a round with just 1 strike. However, he was not able to do that in any single round against Corey Sandhagen. Now you have a 3-round fight against Pedro Munhoz, a guy who has not been all that successful in his last couple of fights. I know he's coming off a winning Gutierrez, which is great. But again, what are we going to get here? Because Munhoz, he'll bring it to you. Pedro Munhoz will bring on that type of fight where he will get in Vera's face and he will get in there and he will make Vera fight him. It's just a matter of, will Munhoz fall into the trap that Vera will create? Because Vera is going to load up and Vera will try to put you down with every single shot he will throw. There are no half-ass strikes from Marlon Chito Vera. When he doesn't want to strike, he just won't throw anything out there. But when he's trying to put you down, he's throwing, right? It's a tough fight to pick. I mean, I would obviously think that Vera is the favorite. You look at the odds, minus 180, plus 155 for Munhoz. I thought Henry Cejudo was a very tough matchup for Marlon Vera. I thought Henry Cejudo was going to win that fight. This one is, it favors Marlon. It really does. Munhoz wins, he's likely going to win it by decision. Cheeto, by the way, is only 30 years old. I feel like, he's been around for so long. He's only 30. He does look older than 32 in all fairness. But again, if Cheeto's going to win, it's going to be with the striking. It's going to be with the power. If Marlon's going to win, he's likely going to knock down Munhoz at least once, maybe twice. If Pedro wins, it's going to be that Cheeto, again, was just a little bit gun shy like he was in the Corey fight. He's not able to pull the trigger. And Munhoz goes in there, blitzes him, and Munhoz puts a couple combos in. Again, he's in and out the entire fight. Marlon's the favorite for good reason. I think he wins. I'm going to take Marlon Chito Vera to win this fight. I'm going to take him by unanimous decision. I think, again, he's going to find the knockdown multiple times. Munhoz is a tough guy to put away, though. I don't know when the last time Pedro Munhoz has been finished, if at all. He has not, so I don't think you're going to see it here. Pedro Munhoz is, again, a very durable guy. Go back to when he fought Cody Garbrandt in 2019, where both those guys came out there, they had their right fists up, and they, boom, just exchanged right hands for a minute until one man fell over. We're going to talk about Cody Garbrandt in a second, but again, Pedro Munhoz was able to knock out Cody Garbrandt, and he was able to connect with more power and stay in that trading of right hands longer than what Cody Garbrandt was able to do. Munhoz ended up winning that fight by knockout in the first round. I think he's such a durable guy. He's such a tough guy to put away. But I think Vera, if anyone's going to wobble him and anyone's going to rock him, it's going to be Marlon Chito Vera. And I think Vera is able to do so. I think Marlon is able to find that shot against Vera and put him down at least once in this fight. And I think he's going to be able to parlay that in at least a unanimous decision victory. That's how tough a guy I think Pedro Munhoz is to put away. So I think Marlon wins. I think he's going to win by decision. I think he's going to win 2 rounds, both by getting a knockdown. I think Munhoz, when you look at the significant strike count at the end of the fight, I think Munhoz is going to be ahead. I think Munhoz is going to have more significant strikes than Marlon Vera. However, I think where Vera wins, again, is due to damage. That's where he wins a lot of his fights. I think the damage is going to accumulate. I think he's going to beat Pedro Munhoz. I think he gets it done. It can be Marlon Chito Vera to win this fight by unanimous decision. Again, with the accumulation of damage, Vera comes back to the win column with this decision victory over Pedro Munhoz. Oh man, it's a Cody Garbrandt fight. I feel like this should be on the undercard, honestly, rather than Chris Weidman. I think Weidman is a bigger pay-per-view draw, I think, especially because the way his last fight ended. However, they got Cody and Mario Bautista now. And this is a fight where it's interesting because Cody No Love, man, at 13-5, the big losing streak. Ever since he beat Dominic Cruz for the World Championship, it went downhill. The 2 fights against Dillashaw, both knockout losses. The loss to Pedro Munhoz we just talked about. The Rafael Sunsao victory, where it's like, all right, Cody's back. He was booked against Deiveson Figueiredo for the Flyweight Championship. Fight never happens. Loses to Rob Font in the main event. Loses to Kai Kara France at flyweight. Booked against Hani Yahya a couple times. Julio Arce. Trevin Jones, he goes out there and beats by unanimous decision in his last fight. He out-wrestles Trevin Jones. And yeah, I mean, doesn't completely out-wrestle him, but when it mattered in that second round, he picked up, he got the round in the second by out-wrestling Trevin Jones. He loses the third round definitely to Jones. Not much really happens. Garbrandt kind of takes the round off, considering he knows he had that fight won 1 round or 2 rounds to 1 because he won the first and second rounds, right? So you now get him against Mario Bautista. Man, I mean, you look at Bautista, what he's done. I know he hasn't fought anybody on the level of Cody Garbrandt, but you look at his wins, they're not against the greatest guys, I'll be honest with you. Guido Canetti he submits in the first round. He armbars Benito Lopez in the first round. He submits Brian Kelleher in the first round. He beats Jay Perrin by unanimous decision. Those aren't great guys, and I think it opens up a pathway to victory for Cody No Love. Because Mario Bautista is not the best striker. He has the flying knee knockout win over Miles Jones back in 2020. He got knocked out by Trevin Jones. If you're playing MMA math, okay, well, Cody Garbrandt beat Trevin Jones. Mario Bautista lost to Trevin Jones. So I don't really know if Bautista's able to get the knockout in this fight. I know Cody's chin is suspect at best, but even when Cody lost those fights, he's been fighting guys who are really good strikers and who've got a lot of power, known for their power. Dillashaw, Munhoz, Kai Kara France. Those are guys who get knockdowns in fights and put guys down and out. Mario Bautista only has 1 knockdown in his UFC career. So I don't think Mario Bautista is able to knock out Cody Garbrandt. I think his best pathway to victory is through taking him down and trying to submit him. I think it's possible, definitely. I think it is. Because, Cody's been taken down before. However, Garbrandt's not a bad defensive wrestler in his own right. 78% takedown defense rate. I think there's a possibility Garbrandt wins. Really. Because, again, you look at the guys Bautista's beat, he hasn't really beaten anybody. Jay Perrin, no longer in the UFC. He lost to an 18-year-old Raul Rosas. Brian Kelleher is a career undercard guy. Benito Lopez, I believe, was coming off a long layoff. He was coming off a 3-year layoff when he fought Mario Bautista. And Guido Canetti is 43 years old, who's 4-6 in the UFC and 10-7 professionally, right? Like, Bautista really hasn't beaten anybody all that great. He's got a loss to Corey Sandhagen back in 2019 where he lost by armbar. He got knocked out by Trevin Jones in 2021, right? Like, Bautista really hasn't fought in anybody on Cody's level. I know Garbrandt is a shell of his former self, but as I keep on looking at this fight, I think Cody wins. I'm going to take Garbrandt by first round knockout because I don't think Mario... Okay, I could be wrong, and we could find out on Saturday, but I don't think that Bautista's on the level of Cody Garbrandt striking-wise. He hasn't shown that so far in the UFC. He showed that in one fight, the Miles Johns fight. We have not seen it since. He's gone to the wrestling in every single fight. He's gone to the grappling, and he's gone out there and he's trying to submit guys. However, Cody Garbrandt is a good defensive wrestler who has been able to stuff takedowns in the past. I think he's able to stuff whatever Mario Bautista throws at him in terms of wrestling, and I think Cody Garbrandt keeps the fight on the feet. I think Cody Garbrandt's going to win this fight by knockout. I think Cody No Love gets the job done. Garbrandt wins it. I think it's a huge victory for him. I think it's a fight that can potentially, get him back in the top 15, back-to-back wins. I think it's going to be somewhat similar to the Asuncion victory. It's going to be a huge highlight reel knockout that gets everyone excited for Cody Garbrandt yet again. But I think Garbrandt picks up the victory. I think it's a fight where I think Bautista's good, but I think he's got a very padded 6-2 record. Because I don't truly think the guys that he's beaten are all that great. Because they're just not. The best win that he does have is Miles Johns. His other win is Juso Sun. The guys he's fought aren't that great. I'm going to take the huge underdog. I'm taking plus 265 Cody Garbrandt to win this fight by first round knockout. I think he's got all the skills and all the tools. I think he gets it done. First round knockout victory for Cody No Love Garbrandt. All right, Jeff Neal and Ian Machado Garry. All right, here at 170 pounds, Ian Garry has been rising the ranks. He's undefeated. He's 12-0. He's legit. You look at the Danny Rodrigues fight. He's legit. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You know, I had my doubts with Ian Garry, but again, that win over Daniel Rodrigues, the guy is a legit fighter. He wins on ABC on the Rosenstruik Almeida undercard. The guy is good. But now he gets Jeff Neal, who has been looking really good as of late. I know he just lost to Shavkat Rakhmonov, but man, Jeff Neal put on a really good performance in that fight. He really put it all out there and lost a fight of the night against a really tough ask against a guy that nobody wants to fight in Shavkat Rakhmonov. Before that, for Jeff Neal, he beats Vicente Luque. He knocks him down twice. He gives Vicente Luque brain bleeding damage or whatever. He beats Ponzinibbio before that. Like, Jeff Neal's striking game is good. He is a good striker. He will get in your face. He's, won't always get the knockout. He got the knockout against Luque. He finished Mike Perry back in 2019. But the guy's a really good striker, and he's got a lot of power. And he's going to brawl with you. Ian Garry is more of a technical striker, of course. He's not going to try to get in these brawls. He's going to try to pick his shots. Even though he's had fights again where they have been brawls. I mean, he got dropped by Sung Ki-nan. The Gabe Green fight, he took some damage. So I'm not saying Ian Garry's not going to get hit. He will get hit. It's just a matter of, Ian Garry is going to try. He's not as much of a knockout threat, I guess, as Jeff Neal is. Even though I guess Ian Garry has gotten knockouts in his last 2 fights. I don't know. This is going to be a competitive fight. It will be a competitive fight. Ian Garry's coming off that knockout victory over Daniel Rodrigues before that Sung Ki-nan. I think Garry's going to get rocked in this fight. Because Jeff Neal, that guy's got power. If Ian Garry gets knocked down by Sung Ki-nan, he will likely get knocked down by Jeff Neal as well. This is why this fight has all the makings of a fight of the night, just because, again, the way these two guys fight. But Garry's going to look for the kill. Neal's going to look for the kill. It's just a matter of who you think the better striker is. Ian Garry's 6'3". He is a long and he is a big welterweight. Jeff Neal's 5'11". Sometimes he looks undersized, but I think that was kind of in the Wonder Boy fight, he looked a little undersized, and Shavkat, because both those guys are so big. I don't think it's going to really play too much of a factor. I know Garry, again, will tower over Jeff Neal, but when you look at their reach, about the same. Actually, Jeff Neal has a longer reach. He's got a 75-inch reach. Ian Machado Garry has a 74-inch reach. For Garry being so tall, he's got a shorter reach than what Geoff Neal has. Garry is the slight favorite at minus 160. Geoff Neal's the underdog at plus 140. You look at the odds on the picks on Tapology, 65% going with Ian Machado Garry and 35% going with Fortis MMA Zone in Geoff Neal. You know, the UFC is following the Conor McGregor route with Ian Machado Garry. That's what they're doing. Conor had his big fight in Boston against Dennis Seaver. Ian Machado Garry's their new Irish star. They want him to bloom into a big star that they have. They're hoping he can get the job done in Boston against Geoff Neal. I mean, you know, this is a huge fight. Geoff Neal is back on a pay-per-view card. Shavkat Rakhmonov's name was made on a pay-per-view card against Geoff Neal. I think the UFC is hoping that Ian Machado Garry's name is made on a pay-per-view card against Geoff Neal as well. I think Ian Machado Garry wins. I think he wins it by decision. I think Machado Garry is able to stay out the way of big shots from Neal. I think he is going to get dropped at some point. Sure, I think he will get dropped by Geoff Neal. However, I think Gary's going to come back. I think he's going to get knocked down in one round, but I think he's going to knock Neal down himself. I think Machado Garry's going to win this fight 2 rounds to 1. I think Neal is going to win a round, but in the end, I think this is going to be fight of the night. I think it's going to be back and forth. I know both these guys hate each other as it is. I think there's going to be a little bit of respect after this one because I think it's going to be that good of a fight. I think they're going to bury the hatchet, and I think Ian Machado Garry is going to pick up the victory. Like him, hate him, I don't know. Ian Machado Garry is still a good striker. He's battled through adversity before. I know this is by far his toughest ask to date because that's how good Geoff Neal is and that's how much power Geoff Neal does possess. However, I think the future at 25 years old, Ian Machado Garry picks up the victory. He wins this fight by unanimous decision. On to the co-main event. For the Strawweight Championship, Zhang Weili is back and she will be taking on Amanda Lemos. I don't know why the UFC doesn't want to do Yan Xiaonan versus Zhang Weili. That feels like the obvious fight. It really does. I don't know. That is probably the best fight they could make. No disrespect in the slightest to Amanda Lemos. But man, they could just make the Yan Xiaonan and Zhang Weili fight, put it in China. It would likely be the biggest fight in Chinese. It would be the biggest fight in Chinese MMA history. And Yan Xiaonan is coming off back-to-back wins from Mackenzie Dern and Jessica Andrade. You gotta think that Xiaonan is next. I mean, I can only assume she'd be next. But they're giving the fight to the Lemos instead. And when you look at the weight class, right, you've got Zhang Weili, the champion. Carla Esparza is number 1. She is pregnant. Rose Namajunas is going up to 125. 3 is Yan Xiaonan, knocking the title shot. Instead, it's number 4, Amanda Lemos. 5 is Jessica Andrade. She will be fighting Tatiana Suarez by the time this video comes out. I mean, I'm recording this literally like hours before Suarez and Andrade are about to fight. When you're watching this, you know who won that fight between Suarez and Andrade. We're assuming it's going to be Suarez. However, are you really going to make Suarez fight Yan Xiaonan? Or Xiaonan fight Suarez? I don't know. I think you probably do. Zhang Weili, Lemos winner, fights Yan Xiaonan. And then maybe the loser of this fight fights Tatiana Suarez, or I just like to see the Mackenzie Dern fight. I think that'd be really interesting. I think Suarez will likely win, but I think that's a fun fight. If Suarez can get past Andrade, she fights Mackenzie Dern, or hell, if Andrade wins, I guess have her fight Mackenzie Dern as well. Probably be an Apex main event. Like, let's just be honest, that's probably what that would be. However, this is the fight though between Yan Xiaonan and Amanda Lemos. Lemos is good. I know she's, it's only on a 2-fight winning streak. Her last loss is to Jessica Andrade, who now seems like she's on a big losing streak because she is. She's lost 2 straight fights and is likely going to lose to Tatiana as well. But still, Lemos got submitted by Jessica Andrade in the first round as a standing arm triangle choke, got her back against the cage and submitted her. Lemos, after that, came back, submitted Michelle Waterson Gomez, and then just beat Marina Rodrigues by knockout in the 3rd round. Lemos does have power. She's always going to have that power. But man, Zhang Weili is so good. It was a one-sided beatdown when she beat Carla Esparza. We knew that's how that fight was going to go. We knew it was not going to be close in all likeliness. And that's why I'm surprised Rose Namajunas is going up to 125 pounds. Because it feels like the title fight is right there for her. She honestly probably wouldn't even have to fight again. She'd probably get a title shot. Or if she just fought Yan Xiaonan, the winner of that fight would fight for a world championship. That's why the Manon Fiorot fight does not make sense for me, for Rose Namajunas. Because I know maybe the easier fight between Alexa Grasso and Zhang Weili is Alexa Grasso, but still, you're up 10 pounds. You've already beat Zhang Weili twice. A win over Yan Xiaonan would likely get her the title shot. Hell, she probably wouldn't even have to fight that fight. They'd probably give her the title shot and make Yan Xiaonan fight the winner or probably make her fight Tatiana Suarez. Because I know Zhang Nan's beat Andrade and Dern before. Janji Hoba maybe, but like, you know, right? The fight's there for Namajunas. I know she had a boring last fight for where she lost her championship to Carla Esparza, but when you've already beat the world champion twice, it's right there for you. And okay, I just realized, yeah, Alexa Grasso is the #1 pound-for-pound women's fighter in the world with Amanda Nunes now gone. I kind of think that should be Zhang Weili, but I guess Alexa Grasso would be Valentina Shevchenko. If she beats her again, there you have it. I don't know. I think Shevchenko probably wins the rematch, if I'm being honest with you. But this fight between Zhang Weili and Lemos is good. I just think Zhang Weili's on another level. You know, you look at the domination she had against Carla Esparza. You look how she's able to knock out Joanna Jędrzejczyk in their rematch. I know she dropped 2 straight fights to Rose Namajunas, but this is how good Zhang Weili is. She's a great striker. She's probably she is the strongest women's strawweight maybe of all time. Jessica Andrade maybe being that one exception. However, she beat Jessica Andrade for the World Championship in China in 2019. Zhang Weili is that good. She is that type of fighter. I don't know how Amanda Lemos wins because Zhang Weili is a better striker than Lemos. She's got more power than Lemos. On the ground, Zhang Weili, I don't think is going to have any problems with Amanda Lemos. If anything, again, Zhang Weili won the World Championship by submission against Carla Esparza. It was that back crucifix that she got. I think Zhang Weili wins. I mean, Amanda Lemos finally getting the World Championship shot at 36 years of age. She's 13-2-1 professionally. I believe she's 7-2-1 or 7-2 in the UFC. Yeah. But again, you know, she just lost to Andrade. She won 2 fights. But again, does Michelle Waterson and Marina Rodrigues really result in a title fight? I don't know. Especially over Yan Zhanan, I really think that's questionable. Zhang Weili is going to win. It's not going to... I mean, it might be close, but I just think, again, she's the better striker. I think Zhang Weili, she's gotten two straight wins by finish in the second round. I think this one's going to be another one. I'm going Zhang Weili to win this fight by second round TKO. I think, again, she's going to really separate herself from Amanda Lemos. I think she's going to really show why she is the best strawweight on the planet. And I think you get a killer matchup that you know Dana White's going to be really excited for. They gotta put it in China. Zhang Weili versus Yan Zhanan for the strawweight championship. That just feels like the fight to make next. You know, and of course, probably they booked that fight and they'll probably put it in like Jacksonville, Florida, because of course they would. Where both fighters would likely get booed in Jacksonville. Zhang Weili is going to win. She got booed when she fought Rose Namajunas in Jacksonville. Zhang Weili is going to win. She's going to beat Amanda Lemos. She's going to get her in the second round. I think Zhang Weili is too fast. I think she's got more power. I just don't know what Lemos is able to do. I really just don't know what Lemos is able to do. She's got power, sure. She's got heavy hands, but even in Lemos' wins, like she was arguably losing to Michelle Waterson before she got the guillotine and finished Waterson. Before Waterson took her down, you can say Michelle Waterson maybe won that first round against Amanda Lemos, right? I think you definitely make that case because she got a takedown. Yeah, I would definitely say Waterson beat Lemos in that first round. Marina Rodrigues' fight with Lemos was incredibly kind of boring. I know Lemos gets the takedown in the second round, but I don't think she's able to get a takedown against Zhang Weili. I don't think she's able to do it. Rose Namajunas did take down Zhang Weili a couple times, but in that second fight, it was a lot of Zhang Weili shooting on Rose Namajunas, right? So I think if anything, Zhang Weili's a better wrestler. Jiu-jitsu-wise, maybe Lemos has got it, but still Lemos just got submitted by Jessica Andrade. Striking-wise, all Zhang Weili, and that's why Magnum Zhang Weili retains the World Championship and still strawweight champion of the world. Zhang Weili wins this fight by second round TKO. On to the main event. Oh man, it is the Funk Master, Aljamain Sterling versus Suga Sean O'Malley. Again, we have said it, and I will continue to say it. Aljamain Sterling is the greatest bantamweight of all time. And now he defends his championship, likely for the last time, because he will likely be moving up to featherweight for his next fight to give Moroz Dvalishvili a chance at the championship, and because he doesn't want to call the weight anymore, because look how massive Aljamain Sterling is. Like, have you seen those training videos of him? He is built for this fight. He's only fighting, what, 3-4 months after beating Henry Cejudo, which is very interesting, which I think is definitely the UFC's way of saying, we want Sean O'Malley to win this fight. You have to turn around and fight Sean O'Malley right away, because Sean basically was the defuncto champion, because the winner of Sterling and Cejudo, no matter what, was going to have to fight Sean O'Malley next. But now Aljo walks into a matchup with Sean O'Malley. It's striker versus grappler. That's how this fight is. Sterling's the way better grappler. O'Malley is the better striker. I would not underestimate Aljamain Sterling's striking game because I think it's getting a whole lot better. I think people underestimate his striking a lot. I really think they do. Now the fight with Henry Cejudo. Okay. I thought Aljamain Sterling won 4-1. The only round he lost was the 5th round. That's how I watched that fight. I rewatched the fight. I still think the only round Aljamain Sterling lost was the 5th because he thought he had it in the bag. Every single round, I think Aljamain wins. That's how good Aljamain Sterling is. I hated the scorecards on that fight. I hated that one judge somehow found 3 rounds for Henry Cejudo, let alone 2. Aljo, I thought, completely ran through Cejudo. Striking-wise, wrestling-wise, I know he went 4 for 15 on his takedowns, but still, again, he was able to get 4 takedowns against an Olympic gold medalist in Henry Cejudo. What is he going to do to Sean O'Malley? Because O'Malley does not have the wrestling game and close to the wrestling game that Sterling has. You look back at Sean's last fight. It's against Petr Yan in Abu Dhabi, UFC 280, Oliveira Makhachev. 1 is the main event. Now, Petr Yan wins the fight. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Yan wins the first 2 rounds. He should have got the scorecards. That was a really bad decision. I thought Yan won that fight pretty decisively. He won rounds 1 and 2. Okay. He was able to take down Sean 6 times. What is Aljamain Sterling going to do with 1 takedown? Because Aljo's a better wrestler than Yan. Now, I know Yan won a lot of the wrestling exchanges in the first fight between the 2 guys, but in the second fight, it was all Aljamain winning the wrestling exchanges against Petr Yan. That was evident, right? Aljo's a better wrestler than Yan. Aljo is going to be able to take Sean O'Malley down more easily than Yan. And oh, by the way, I don't think Sean O'Malley is going to be able to get up as easily against Aljamain Sterling as he was able to do against Petr Yan, right? And Yan was able to hold him down for a pretty decent amount. He's able to take him down 6 times, right? Sean hasn't been tested on the ground other than the Yan fight. Other than that, they've given him strikers. Andrei Sokolov tested the wrestling game a little bit, but Sokolov fought a horrible fight in that fight, and that was evident. He lost to Marlon Vera. Again, Vera tagged him and knocked him out. But again, I don't think Aljo is going to be in a position where he's going to try to knock out Sean O'Malley. Aljamain Sterling will likely, look for a takedown immediately against Sean. And I wouldn't count Aljo out, especially if he's not able to get a takedown right away, because I think Aljo is able to remain competitive on the feet with Sean O'Malley. I would like to present to you the Pedro Munhoz fight. Munhoz was in a very competitive, boring fight with Sean O'Malley until the eye poke happened. That fight was not like one-sided either way. Sean O'Malley likely outstriked Petr Yan, but Yan's a very slow starter, and, the 3rd round happened. I'll give credit to where credit is due. Sean O'Malley outstruck Petr Yan in the 3rd round of their fight. However, in a 5-round fight, I think Petr Yan wins. Right? They've handpicked Sean O'Malley fights to get to the World Championship. That's what they've done. You look at his UFC career. All right. Tyrion Ware's first fight. Andrei Sokolov. Jose Quinones. Eddie Wineland. Chito Vera, he lost. Thomas Almeida, 1. Chris Moutinho, 1. Halion Paivo, 1. Munhoz, no contest. He beats Petr Yan. He jumps from number 10 to number 1 because of that one fight. They handpicked him to Yan. He beat Yan. Boom. He got his way into the door. Now he gets Aljamain Sterling. But Aljo's so good. Aljo is on a different level. He really is. I know no one wants to credit him at all. And I know all the excuses. Oh, he barely beat Cejudo. He barely beat Cejudo, who's coming off of a 4-year layoff. Oh, he's supposed to beat Dillashaw. His shoulder's out. Oh, he didn't really beat Yan the 2nd time. He got kneed in the first fight. Oh, he wasn't supposed to win that fight. There's no real excuse for the Sandhagen fight because he dominated Sandhagen. But right, that's what I'm talking about. There's an excuse for every single Aljamain Sterling title fight. What's going to be the excuse when Aljamain Sterling takes Sean O'Malley's back in the 1st round, submits him with a rear naked choke? Because that's what's going to happen. Aljamain Sterling wins this fight. He makes it look easy, 1st round submission. That's how I think this fight goes. I don't think Sean's competitive in this fight. I think it's a one-sided beatdown. That's how I think this fight is. I think Aljo is the human backpack for a reason. He's going to strike his way into range, and boom, he's going to take Sean down. O'Malley is going to be lost on the ground with a guy of the jiu-jitsu caliber of Aljamain Sterling. Sterling is going to hop on his back, and Aljamain Sterling is going to tap him out within 3 minutes. That's how this fight's going to go. That's a very bold pick, but that's how good Aljamain Sterling is. Aljamain Sterling is going to make a statement against the UFC's poster boy in Sean O'Malley, and then he's going to go up to 145 pounds and try to become a double champion by fighting Alex Volkanovski next. You know, that's the next fight. Alexander Volkanovski is the next fight for Aljamain Sterling. Now, again, Volkanovski, I think, will likely have to fight Ilia Topuria before that, because I don't think Volk wants to be that inactive, because I think Aljo is going to probably take like 9 months off after this, just because he's fought twice in the span of 3 months, which is fair. So I think Volk will probably have to fight Topuria first in like December, and then we can book this fight probably for like May of next year. Aljo and Volkanovski, the champ versus champ, right? Probably in the States, right? I don't think Volk gets the fight in. I doubt he gets the fight in Australia. Aljo will probably get somewhere in the United States. Probably Vegas, they'll do the title for title thing. And it makes sense. But in all, that's how good Aljamain Sterling is. He's way better than Sean O'Malley on the ground. I know, again, if O'Malley's going to win, it's going to be with striking. And if Sean wins, it's going to be because Aljamain Sterling can't take him down. It's that simple. But I really don't see a world where that happens. Because, again, Aljo's going to shoot on you at least 15 times. That's what he did against Cejudo. He's going to do that against Sean O'Malley. If he's able to take down if he's able to take down Henry Cejudo 4 times, he's going to be able to take down Sean O'Malley more than that. And he's going to have a lot more success once he does get to the ground against Sean O'Malley than what he did against Henry Cejudo. I think Aljo's going to ragdoll him. If he's not able to get that submission in the first round, he's either going to get it later in the fight or he's just going to win a decision. The UFC is going to hate it that O'Malley is going to get embarrassed on a big pay-per-view stage for the World Championship, but that's likely what's going to happen. Aljamain Sterling, and still bantamweight champion of the world, cementing himself again as the greatest bantamweight of all time. Now, we talked about this before, but what does the UFC do in terms of the world championship picture? Now, I'm recording this again before, I know it's 2 weeks out, but I'm recording this before Sandhagen and Font. That fight's literally happening in like 4 hours, right? I'm recording it right before that fight. This video right before that fight. I'm assuming, and I will say Corey Sandhagen is going to win that fight. So what do you do for the interim title? Sean O'Malley probably can't fight for the world championship next. Again, obviously losing this fight. I think O'Malley gets Henry Cejudo. I think Corey Sandhagen is then put in a fight for the, I think they're going to say the interim championship, because they want Aljo to still have the belt when he goes to fight Volkanovski, so you can say it's champ versus champ. So I say they make it an interim fight, but of course the winner eventually is going to get promoted to the world champion. I think they're going to say it's an interim world championship fight between Moroz Dvalishvili and Corey Sandhagen. If Sandhagen does win, then it does give Aljo the option of going back down and defending the championship in a rematch against Sandhagen. But if Moroz wins, then obviously Aljo is just going to vacate the world championship. But it does give Aljo the option if Corey is able to somehow beat Moroz. If Rob Font wins, it throws a wrench in the entire thing. If Font beats Sandhagen, then I think Henry Cejudo is gifted the interim championship fight against Moroz Dvalishvili, or honestly, they'll just give it to Rob Font. But I think in terms of a marketing standpoint and in terms of a pay-per-view standpoint, they'd likely do Cejudo against Dvalishvili rather than Font versus Dvalishvili, because Cejudo can carry the pay-per-view and Rob Dvalishvili honestly cannot. So that's besides the point. Aljo's got to take care of business first here against Volkanovski. If he somehow loses, Sean O'Malley is going to be fighting Moroz Dvalishvili next for the world championship. And they've got the whole feud with the red jacket and everything. I don't think it's ever going to happen, though, because I think Aljo is going to make quick work of Sean O'Malley. And still, the Funk Master, Aljamain Sterling, retains against Suga Sean O'Malley by first round submission. And folks, thank you all for watching our UFC 292 predictions here on the channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back tomorrow for PFL 8 playoff action, and next week with the UFC returns to Singapore for a Fight Night main event where they are airing a live execution. Max Holloway takes on the Korean Zombie, and I love the Korean Zombie, but god damn, why are they doing that fight? I don't know. Folks, thank you all for watching. Make sure that subscribe button down below for more, and Mamba forever.